so happy we alive.
Past trauma, sexual abuse, painful experiences, grief over death of a loved one, and these experiences, because people are strengthened in their ability to handle difficult emotions, a lot of times people will have the emergence of this opportunity to process these difficult emotions. But if you're out with a group of friends just to have fun, you tend to suppress the painful, difficult emotions, and I think that can make them worse. And so I think that is a danger. There's a small number of people who have heard the warnings about don't overheat, drink a lot of water, and then they drink gallons and gallons of water and die from water intoxication. That's happened a few times. But the neurotoxicity has been linked to virtually nothing in the realm of functional consequences. Even in the animal studies, it's been very hard where the massive amounts of serotonin reductions have taken place. The animals look and seem normal, live a normal period of time. And so the area of research that's been focused on most is MDMA and memory. There's claims that ravers or people who've used large amounts of MDMA function less well on certain memory tests, and then there are claims that that's somehow linked to reductions in serotonin. But some of these studies have shown that there's no relationship between the serotonin levels that people have and their scores on the memory, or it's a very weak relationship.
Mm-hmm. And so, from your personal experience with MDMA, do you feel that it has a lot of positive potential for mankind?
Yes, tremendously so, and
people,
also the FDA agrees. So to finish up just a second on the memory studies, is that there's multiple confounds. The trying to do studies comparing MDMA users to controls that are matched supposedly on all variables except for MDMA. They're not that well matched. The MDMA users are also heavy marijuana users, and many studies that have not shown a difference have not been published. We hear about them. A lot of journals don't like to publish studies with negative results, and in this climate it's much better to, your chances of getting a paper published are greater if you say something bad about an illegal drug than if you say something good about an illegal drug. So I think that the memory issue is really something that's unresolved, but even if it is a link, it's very minor for heavy users. People are still within the normal range by and large. So what the FDA has said and what MAPS is focused on is really trying to balance risk and benefit. I should say that everything has risks. It's not to say that MDMA is risk-free, but there's a risk to everything. But the question is the risk balanced out by potential benefits? And because MDMA has been a therapeutic drug prior to its criminalization and its widespread use under ecstasy as a recreational drug, now we're trying to get back to doing research with MDMA as a therapeutic drug. And the Food and Drug Administration, November 2nd, 2001, approved a study of MDMA in the treatment of post-traumatic stress disorder in men and women survivors of sexual and criminal assault who have failed on at least one treatment of an SSRI, serotonin selective reuptake inhibitor like Prozac or Zoloft or Paxil. So those are the only approved medicines for PTSD. And so we're taking people who have failed on those, failed to find relief, and have chronic PTSD, and we think we can help them with MDMA. We also have a study going on in Spain, which was the first one approved in the world for the MDMA in any therapeutic context, and that's with women only, survivors of sexual assault with chronic PTSD. And that's a dose-response study where the first group of women will get 50, each of them gets one session. And it's a placebo-controlled double-blind study where there's a dose escalation. So the first group of 4 women, 3 get 50 milligrams of, 3 of them will each get one 50 milligram dose or a placebo in the context of therapy. So there's non-drug psychotherapy to prepare them for the session, then there's the session, which is either the MDMA or the placebo, and then there's post-session integrative therapy for several weeks after. And after the 4 women have gone through the 50 milligram group and there's been no adverse effects, then we start the 75 milligram group. So now we're into the 75 milligram group. 6 people have been treated so far total. And after we complete the 75 milligram group, then we go to the 100, and then 125, and then 150 milligrams. So it's a dose-finding study trying to look at what might be the most appropriate dose. Now, we already know that it's around 125 milligrams from the underground therapeutic use that has taken place prior to its criminalization and by some brave therapists who continue it still. But the development of MDMA and marijuana, it's topsy-turvy to the normal drug development, because normal drug development by pharmaceutical companies involves drugs that have not really been used by humans. There's animal testing, then it goes into humans, and by the time it's been through the FDA process, maybe 500 to 5,000 people have tried the drug. But with the psychedelics and with marijuana, millions and millions of people have tried these drugs before we even get to the point of being able to do the first human study. So we have an enormous body of knowledge about these drugs. And also we know about the 1 in a million situation, or the 1 in 100,000. So a lot of the adverse effects that I can share with you about MDMA, about hyperthermia or hyponatremia, too much water intoxication, they're 1 in a million events. And we know about them because there's millions of people taking these drugs. But with the prescription drugs, a lot of times you don't find out about these things till after they're approved for marketing.
If you find out.
If you find out at all. Yeah, so what we're trying to do is really develop MDMA into a prescription medicine, and the sequence of studies we're doing is first off the Spain study, then the U.S. study is going to involve 20 subjects. Each of them are going to get 2 therapy sessions. And they will either be 2 therapy sessions 3 to 5 weeks apart with 125 milligrams with preliminary psychotherapy, non-drug psychotherapy, and then post-session psychotherapy, or they will get a placebo session. And we've been able to negotiate with FDA. 12 people will be in the MDMA group, 8 people in the placebo group. It's a preliminary pilot study to see if we're getting any suggestive evidence that the patients are helped in this process. And we're trying to start a study in Israel for MDMA and the treatment of post-traumatic stress in victims of war and terrorism, and I hope to start that sometime end of 2002, early 2003.
And the results of your investigations will be published in professional journals, but also on the website, the MAPS website.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, definitely. And the protocols. I mean, we're doing drug development out in the open. So again, it's the opposite of pharmaceutical companies that try to do it in secret so that no other pharmaceutical company will beat them to the punch to market this drug. And so most everything is secret by the pharmaceutical industry until it's approved, and then sometimes they'll publish on paper. So we're actually, the protocols are up on our website. The arguments that we use to the FDA to try to justify our request for permission to do the studies are up on the website. The review of the scientific literature, we spent $80,000 reviewing the scientific literature on MDMA. There's over 1,200 papers that have been published on MDMA. Not a single one is about a controlled study of its therapeutic use. Almost all focused on risk. And so what we're trying to do is educate and move the process forward. Now we're also funding other efforts to look at the risk of MDMA. So we're helping out with an MDMA memory study where we found a group of people who have used MDMA but virtually no other drugs. So that is the kind of study where you really can gather the scientifically highest quality information about MDMA, where we've got a group that really hasn't done any other drug but MDMA, and then we can compare them to match controls that are more or less matched on age and education and income and IQ level and various things, and then we will be able to get better information than other studies that have much more experimental compounds in their design. So we are looking at risk. I funded the first animal studies with monkeys, with primates, into the neurotoxicity of MDMA. There was a series of MDMA neurotoxicity studies in humans. I was the first person to get a spinal tap in those studies, to have cerebral spinal fluid analyzed for serotonin metabolites. That was before we had the PET imaging techniques were developed. We've supported the MDMA risk research since our beginning. Now, what I believe is that MDMA will play an important role as an adjunct to psychotherapy for a wide range of disorders. After we are underway with the MDMA post-traumatic stress disorder study, we're going to be trying to start a study with MDMA in the treatment of pain and anxiety in end-stage, or if not end-stage, close to it, cancer and AIDS patients and others in hospice context. Because what we're trying to show is that the pain of dying can be eased through opening the heart